When you live in Chicago and you're an African-American man, you know that what you're up against when it comes to the police. The fear and the mistrust goes so far back. And I almost want to say it's in our DNA. I grew up in the Cabrini Green, in and around the Cabrini Green housing project in Chicago, Illinois. I had the opportunity to go to school outside of my neighborhood. I went to school on the Gold Coast of Chicago. At the age of 7 or 8, I met a police officer for the first time. Shook his hand and all those kind of things. Officer Friendly was a white officer that stood in front of our pretty much our whole school and talked about being a police officer and talked about if we needed help, we could approach him anytime. But the Officer Friendly that I met at Ogden at my grammar school wasn't Officer Friendly in my neighborhood. When I got home and I started talking to my family, they gave me the talk right away about interacting with the police. When I told my grandmother about my interaction with Officer Friendly, my grandmother said, "You don't want to mess with the police because the police slapped your uncle around." And then I understood Officer Friendly wasn't my friend. Later on, by coming back to the community after military service, I had more interactions with the police, and they were pretty much negative because again, when they see me, they see a black man. We, as enslaved people, were subject to slave catchers that were sent out to catch runaway slaves. You have always had the police that were correcting enslaved people at that time, and then once freedom came, they were correcting free people, whether it was through Jim Crow laws, whether it was through segregation. Police have never been our friends, so the situation has just gone on and on and on. And how can we ever trust the slave catcher turned police officer turned union buster, riot suppressor, protest suppressor? Number one, to me, you gotta love your job. You gotta love your job. And when I see police officers that they're stressed, they're traumatized, they've had some issues, they project that out onto the community. And when they don't want to be in the community, you feel it. You see it in how they treat people. There's no connection. There's no relationship. Wouldn't that be a beautiful thing if more police officers lived in the communities that they work in, or at least did something to connect to the community, had some kind of trust that had been built because now you're approachable. I've been a minister now for probably about 15 years, and I've worked in neighborhoods all over the city, and I've seen, given time, some amazing stories. But I gotta believe that we can do something different. I gotta believe that we can change something, because there are some good officers out there. Karan Butler helped out and did a presentation, had a conversation with some of the guys in our program in Chicago Cred. And he said the critical thing that happened in his life was a relationship he had with a police officer. What if more of our guys could say that?